Hi everyone, Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, here with another This Week in NYRA Bets video. But before we get into all of the brass tacks and go over what we're going to be expecting, as well as reviewing some of the big performances from this last weekend at Saratoga, at Del Mar, at Colonial Downs, all over the country, make sure to press that like and subscribe button here on NYRA Bets because we got a ton of great content for you. We have some really fun videos that we just posted that I actually did last year, but my top 5 Travers moments. Those are some fun videos you can check out, getting ready for the Travers coming up in a couple of weeks. But we also have stakes previews, full card analysis, handicapping and betting 101 tutorials, live streams on Tuesday nights, and so much more. So like I said, make sure to press that like and subscribe button here on the NYRA Bets YouTube channel. You're not going to regret it. A lot of great content and valuable insight from people all across the industry. Not just me, I'm just the host here. So listen, going to have a lot of fun with this channel if you're just tuning in for the first time. All right. So this week in NYRA Bets, what do we expect this week? We'll talk about some promotions. We'll talk about some upcoming content, but we'll also be talking about what we learned from last weekend, which was a crazy weekend with weather, but also with just amazing racing across the country. But let's dive into the promotions for this week. And we're going to kick things off on my sister's birthday, Wednesday, August 14th. Happy birthday to my sister, Sarah. And she may or may not be turning a certain age this year that maybe she feels strongly about, but we'll see. Hope she has a great day. But on Wednesday, August 14th, we have a promotion, $10 bonus. If you bet 50 at both Saratoga and Delaware Park, you get $10 win or lose. I love those bonuses because there's always a lot of fun ways to play early in the day. Delaware and Saratoga, you bet 50 at each track. And listen, you're going to get 10 back no matter what. On Thursday, can't forget, we have our NYRA Bet Superfecta Summer Ale on sale only up at the spa at the track. That's the only place you can get it. So you want to make sure to come out to the track, get a Superfecta Summer Ale. But because it's the Superfecta Summer Ale, we have a 16% bonus on all Superfecta wagers at Saratoga on Thursday, August 15th. So great way, play the Superfecta, drink a little Superfecta Summer Ale if you're at the track, and opt in on NYRA Bets. On Friday, August 16th, we have a $15 bonus if you bet 75 at Saratoga and Penn National. Always a fun promotion. I talk a lot about how much I enjoy Penn National. It's a track, that's the first track I ever went to as a kid. I grew up about 30 minutes from there in Reading, Pennsylvania. So used to go there. My dad would take me. Always loved Penn National. And a lot of really good people there. I actually have gotten to know quite a few of the horsemen at Penn National, Tim Kreiser and others. So really good product there on Friday nights. So listen, start your day off, bet your 75 at Saratoga. And then when the sun goes down, start betting at Hollywood Penn National. And like I said, you bet 75 at each, you get a $15 bonus. Now, on Saturday, August 17th, which is my Uncle Grant's birthday, there's a lot of Leos in the family. On Saturday, October 17th, we have a $100 bankroll builder for Travers Day. Now, if you've been opting in, you know that you bet $50 to win on the signature race of the day. Obviously, on Saturday, it's going to be the Alabama, okay? If you bet $50 to win, you get $20 back, win or lose, all right? And if you've been opting in this whole time, you've been building up that Travers bankroll with those $20 opt-ins. So if you've opted into all 5 and will opt into all 5 this Saturday, you get $100 waiting for you on Travers Saturday. Pretty nice. And hopefully you've hit some of those win bets as well. So been building up that bankroll for Travers Day. And listen, if you've only opted into 2 or 3, that's okay. Because guess what? You're still going to get, $40, $60 waiting for you for Travers Day. So if you're just new to this and watching for the first time, hey, at least get an extra $20 for Travers Day. Opt in on Saturday, bet $50 to win on the Alabama. I think that's going to be a great betting race, and we're going to have a lot of previews for that coming up this week. And then on Sunday, we got the first race money back guarantee. Put $10 down to win on any horse in the first race at Saratoga or Del Mar. And if your horse runs second or third, you get your money back, okay? If the horse wins, hey, fantastic, good for you. But like I said, even if the horse runs second or third, you get your $10 back. I like this. I usually take a little bit of a swing with those. Just because, listen, betting chalk in the first race is usually not very appetizing. And, with a money back guarantee, I can afford to take a little bit of a swing, especially if a horse I go, well, this horse, maybe 5 to 1, 6 to 1, 8 to 1. But, something I think this horse can run better than, the 5th or 6th choice in a field. And as long as the horse runs third, I get my $10 back. And if the horse jumps up and surprises, hey, guess what? I got a big winner on my hands. So always love opting into those. Well, listen, let's talk a little bit about some of the upcoming content that we have this week for NYRA Bets. And we're going to have our weekly Saratoga track stats updates video. That's going to be coming out. So how the track has been playing. Obviously, last week, a lot of off-turf races, a lot of sloppy, muddy conditions at the track. But we're going to be updating all of that information into track stats. How has the turf course been playing? How has the main track been playing? How has it been playing at different distances and at different levels? How have favorites been performing, etc.? A lot of great data there for you if you've not checked out the weekly track stats videos yet for Saratoga. We're also going to have an Alabama and Lake Placid Stakes preview. Going to be joined by a special guest for that, as well as for the King's Plate and all of the Saturday Woodbine Stakes action. I have a guest who's going to be joining me from Woodbine to talk about some of the great races that they have coming up this weekend. Really, this is Woodbine's weekend. Yes, you have the Alabama and the Lake Placid. Out in Del Mar, you have the Del Mar Oaks. But really, the primary races, the biggest races on Saturday are going to be up north of the border, not at Assiniboia Downs, much to my chagrin, but it will be at Woodbine. And so we're going to have somebody, like I said, from the track come down and, well, they're not going to come down, but they're going to join me and we're going to preview those Saturday stakes races. Then we're going to do a capping the card for Alabama Saturday, where I go through every single race on the card, give you my top pick, my top value play, and hopefully connect you to some winners and at least some creative horses to maybe include in your verticals, etc. So always enjoy doing capping the card, full card analysis, a lot of fun, a lot more focus on betting necessarily than just on the handicapping process. And then, listen, we got the Travers coming up soon, and we're going to start some Travers Spotlight videos. And this is something just to get you maybe familiar with all of the horses that are running in the Travers and let you know who's ascending, who's declining, where should you be looking, what sort of value should you expect to get out of some of these horses, what are some positives, what are some negatives, etc. So really fun spotlight videos. We'll have, do one on each horse that's going to be entered in the race, maybe, have about, 7 to 10 minute videos spotlighting each horse. But like I said, going to be a lot of fun, and make sure to check those out. Well, listen, we had a huge weekend of racing this past weekend, and I want to, first of all, thank everyone who just had the patience of dealing with Tropical Storm Debbie. Hope everybody's okay, and nobody was, places were damaged or anything like that. Hope everybody's doing all right. But obviously, that threw off a lot of the racing calendar. Colonial had to move their schedule all around. We had to cancel races and move things all around as well. We were fortunate enough to at least get a pick 4 and pick 5 pool for both Saturday and Sunday. That included the stakes races, etc. So like I said, appreciate everybody's patience as kind of we built through all of that and worked through all of that in real time with the storm. But listen, let's talk about a few different races. And actually, let's talk starting on Saturday at Saratoga and a horse showcase that won the Saratoga Special. And this was one, I think this is an interesting horse. Todd Pletcher, I ride Ortiz Jr. up on the mount. I think the horse showed a lot of maturity. Really fitting through a little bit of a gap there, showed a lot of maturity as a 2-year-old, certainly in the stretch. And one of the things I would say, and this was one of my horses that I kind of liked going in, I thought the number 1 horse for Brendan Walsh, Smokin' Wicked, was kind of my top choice, but I thought Showcase presented probably the best value on the morning line. Now, the horse got bet down to 3 to 1, so, didn't have quite the value at the end, but this is a prime example of not putting too much stock in buyer speed figures, and for 2-year-olds in particular. Now, some people would tell me, Matthew, you didn't have to stop saying, for 2-year-olds, you didn't have to have that. Some people just don't like speed figures, and I get it. If you don't like speed figures, that's fine. Everybody's got their own way to handicap, and I do think, relying on speed figures tends to homogenize points of view because everybody's looking at the same numbers and kind of sometimes drawing the same conclusions. That said, I think for 2-year-olds, those races are so unique. They don't really have much to compare against often because they're going a distance nobody else is really going, the 4.5, 5 furlongs. Nobody else on the day is racing that distance. So it's hard to make those speed figures. And as a result, sometimes you'll see horses make huge progressions or regressions between races. Also, it's just the nature of 2-year-olds. Some 2-year-olds are really cranked up first time out and then will regress a little bit. Others are allowed to run into shape a little bit more. Showcase was an example of a horse that debuted at Aqueduct and looked really good, but debuted at Aqueduct. And I think people, sometimes will take a little half a point off. Well, it's not Keeneland. It's not Churchill. It's not Saratoga. Well, it's Belmont at Aqueduct. I don't know how good this horse is, compared to some of the others. And didn't necessarily beat a huge field by any stretch. Was not an overwhelming field that day. And only earned, I think, a 57, 58 Beyer speed figure. Now, Touchy, who was in the race, who was the morning line and post-time favorite for Wesley Ward, that horse earned a 77 Beyer speed figure in the Tremont in debut. Now, here's the thing. First of all, the Tremont, we've seen every horse that's run in the Tremont, their numbers have gone down. So I don't know why we expected Touchy to suddenly run a better race. I also question how good sometimes Wesley Ward's horses are beyond 5.5 furlongs. I think he's very good at getting them cranked up and ready to go first time out. I think as they stretch out, they tend to lose their effectiveness. One of the stats I shared was that Wesley Ward over the last 5 years was only 1 for 12 in dirt stakes races at Saratoga for 2-year-olds. So, this is not Keeneland in the spring when he's winning at almost a 50% clip. This is a little bit of a different dynamic. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I thought Showcase, really demonstrated an ability to take a step forward, and I thought ran a really nice race. Now, the reality is that there's some really nice horses waiting in the wings for those stakes races on Labor Day weekend. A horse like Ferocious, who looked so good in debut, and I think a lot of people have big expectations for that horse, for Gustavo Delgado and Ramiro Restrepo as part of that ownership group. Really, a lot of the Mage connections from 2 years ago. They're very excited about that horse, and understandably so. That horse looked phenomenal breaking his maiden a couple of weeks ago at Saratoga. So that's one that's going to be waiting in the wings. But I thought Showcase, like I said, really nice effort there. Now, listen, let's talk about Sunday at Saratoga because, wow, what a day. First of all, just getting through everything and then having the stakes races at the end for the Fourstardave and the Saratoga Derby. Start with the Saratoga Derby, which I felt was fine. It was a great race. It was a thrilling finish. Carson's run beating Legend of Time. And, that was, like I said, a really nice race. Very fun to watch. I think Carson's run came back with an 88 Beyer speed figure, if I'm not mistaken. And a really great ride by Dylan Davis, who's just been having a remarkable summer, along with Mark Cassey, who's also been having, granted, this was a Christophe Clement horse, Carson's run, but Mark Cassey's another trainer who's been having a very hot summer at Saratoga. But Dylan, great ride on the Clement horse, Carson's run. And really nabbed Legend of Time. And I was not a big fan of Legend of Time. I felt that you could beat that horse. When Trikari and First World War scratched, I thought, well, I don't know. I'm still going to try to beat him, but I was trying to beat him with a few different horses. I thought Deterministic maybe would be okay. And Deterministic ran fine, I thought, for third. I thought maybe Royal Majesty would run better. And Carson's run was kind of the other obvious alternative. So I went 3 deep in that leg, and that was okay. It worked out pretty well. But like I said, Legend of Time for Charlie Appleby, I just was never overly impressed by that horse. I think the bigger thing to keep in mind is I think the better horses, and certainly the better horse in terms of a 3-year-old turf horse, was down at Colonial on Sunday. I think Trikari is a really, really, really good horse. And I think Trikari is the type of horse. Obviously, he's going to stay at a mile. He's not going to stretch out. So I'm just not overwhelmed by these longer distance 3-year-old turf horses. I like Trikari a lot at a mile. He looks so good winning that Secretariat Stakes for Grand Motion. John Velasquez aboard. You knew that was a pretty serious. When Johnny V decides to hop on I-95 and go down to Colonial, that tells you everything you need to know. Also, I doubt that Johnny V hopped on I-95. I'm sure he got a flight. But it was one of those things that kind of told you just how highly regarded Trikari is. that Velasquez would take Sunday off at Saratoga to go down there to ride that horse. And I thought rode a really great race there in the Secretariat Stakes, getting Trikari the win. But that's one who I don't want to take anything away from Carson's run. Great victory in the Saratoga Derby. But if you were to say, Matthew, who's your best 3-year-old turf horse, I'd say it's Trikari. That's, in my opinion, kind of pretty straightforward. So really excited for that one. And Graham says this one's going to be going against Older next time out, probably at Keeneland. We'll see how that goes. And it would be interesting to see whether or not this one decides to go to the BC Mile. And Graham spoke to Caitlin Free about that after the race and said, usually I'm pretty, a little hesitant about kind of pushing a 3-year-old in the Breeders' Cup, but we'll see how this next start goes for going against Older at Keeneland. Well, the headliner up at Saratoga on Sunday was the Fourstardave, and Carl Spackler put on a show. 104 buyer speed figure, and just looked dominant. I mean, just got the jump and sat that perfect trip. I talked in my preview about how there was not going to be much pace. If you listen to me and Sarah Abad, we speak about this. There wasn't going to be much pace. Strong quality was just going to be out in front. And the logical horse to benefit from this was going to be Carl Spackler. And this was, he was going to get the jump, and that's exactly what he did. He got the jump and just pulled away from the field. And I mentioned he's a horse that likes a little give in the ground. He's won over a good turf course now 3 times at Saratoga. So he likes a little bit of give in the ground. He really likes Saratoga, 4 wins and 5 starts. So, he's one. Maybe he's a horse for a course, but he's one I'm excited to see. I don't know how good he is running against, some maybe tougher competition out in the Breeders' Cup, but I thought against this field looked very good. The other horse I'll mention from this race, well, 2 very quickly. One is More Than Looks for Cherie DeVaux. I think that horse, first of all, looked like a monster in the paddock and ran a really good second, I thought, considering we've not seen that horse since last November in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Now, that horse will always be a little pace compromised in terms of he comes from the back of the pack, and he's going to need a little bit more pace to run into. I also think it was his first start back. I think, maybe let Carl Spackler get the jump a little bit more, needed to get maybe moving a little bit sooner. But overall, that's a horse that I think moving forward, next start, third start, presumably would probably be in Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup. Those are the starts I'm really looking forward to seeing from More Than Looks for Cherie DeVaux. That's one that I'm very high on. And then Ottoman Fleet for Charlie Appleby. Listen, Charlie Appleby went 0-2 up here in New York with his stakes runners. And I'll be honest, I really was not that impressed with Ottoman Fleet coming into the race. If you watched my video I did on Twitter and X, I kind of said, I don't think this horse has really beaten anybody. And I didn't think he was particularly good. Those graded stakes races at Churchill Downs, I know we've seen a lot of Churchill horses come up here to Saratoga and do well, but the reality is the horses that he were beating were largely allowance horses. And I just didn't think those fields were particularly strong. He came up here, finished 4th. And, that was kind of what I thought he was going to do. And so the good part from a betting standpoint is you could have gotten around both of the Appleby horses. And that's sometimes tough to do. But I think if you zig when others are going to zag, that's where the profit is. And the better and the best Appleby horse ultimately ran down in the Arlington Million, Nation's Pride, who won the Arlington Million down at Colonial. That was the big winner for Appleby this weekend in North America. And not surprisingly, guess who flew over from England? William Buick. Again, very straightforward handicapping angle. Whichever horse William Buick is coming over for is the live horse, okay? So when William Buick's coming over for Nation's Pride, that tells you they're very high on Nation's Pride. That's no slight at Flavian Pratt, and that's no slight at Ottoman Fleet and Legend of Time, but they were clearly second priority, quite frankly. Appleby put his number 1 guy up on Nation's Pride. That tells you everything you need to know sometimes about their intent with this regard. So always paying attention to when those European jockeys come over and who they come over for. Now, listen, a lot of great racing also took place. Ellis Park over the weekend. Sunday at Ellis Park, a lot of great stakes races. I thought the most notable one was actually the Cowboy Jones, which was one of the earlier stakes races on the card. Saudi Crown returns with a win in that Cowboy Jones Memorial. And I'll be honest, a good win, certainly, but not an overwhelming win. And, kind of had to work a little bit. And as people have pointed out, a little slow coming for home. But that was also the first start after that very poor effort in the Godolphin Mile. And I think that's one of those things you got to go back sometimes. Saudi Crown ran maybe the best race, actually, of any horse in that Saudi Cup, okay? And ran just an absolutely huge effort that day and ran third to Senior Buscador and Ushba Tesoro, who both came flying from off the pace. Saudi Crown was the only horse to stay up on the front end that really didn't fade. National Treasure as well, a little bit. National Treasure finished fourth, I think, by a little bit more than a length or so. But Saudi Crown ran an absolutely monster race. Then goes to the Godolphin Mile where he's favored. And everybody goes, oh, he's cutting back to a mile, and myself included. I go, oh, he's cutting back to a mile. This is going to be a slam dunk. He runs 12th, I want to say. He runs a really kind of a nothing effort. And you go, man, that Saudi Cup took the starch out of him a little bit. Something to be wary of. And Cox brought him back and hasn't really even worked him that much. I think he had 4 official works leading up to the Cowboy Jones. And, that race, I think he's still recovering, quite frankly, from that race. I think Saudi Crown might be the best miler we have, but I do worry a little bit about just how much that race took out of him and how long it's going to take him to get back to his form. Because I think at his top of his form, I think he's a better miler than National Treasure. I think he's a better miler than anybody else that you're going to put against him this year. So that's an interesting race and an interesting result and something you can certainly keep track of with the Cox Barn. A couple of other results. Got to give a quick shout out to NYRA, who won the Beverly D at Colonial Downs. First win in the United States for NYRA, who, of course, comes down from Canada once in a while, but you had a feeling she was just going to run a big race. But Fev Rover, credit to that horse, tried to walk the dog all the way around up front, but Moira just got the nose down and got the win over Fev Rover in that Beverly D. Really thrilling race there. And Moira coming off a really huge second, I thought, last time out in the Diana, and had run a big third in the Breeders' Cup before that. So a horse that, absolutely fits in these big spots. I think sometimes we discount some of those Canadian horses, Woodbine horses. We go, well, they need to run against better competition, or we need to see it with our own eyes, etc. Well, Moira's the goods, and she's very, very talented. So big win for her in the Beverly D. Now, out west, we had a couple of big races. We're going to wrap up there. And we had the Sorrento and the Best Pal, both won by Bob Baffert, not surprising. Nooni getting the win in the Sorrento, though I will say didn't draw off the way I thought she might in that race, certainly the way she was bet. Won easy. It wasn't really asked to do too much. I mean, Juan Hernandez kind of gave her a tap or two, and that was it. And, but still did not draw off the way that Getaway Car did in the Best Pal. Looked really good with Juan Hernandez aboard. Obviously, the big question, I think, with some of these 2-year-olds that Baffert has is how are they going to do stretching out, doing 2 turns? Are they just sprinters? Are they horses built for 2 turns? Are they going to get better with distance? That's sometimes a little bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes the second or third tier horse is the one that ends up being the best going longer, and the flashy horse that gets the wins early might not be the one that is going to be better later. Think about National Treasure and Hijazi and Cave Rock and that group, right? National Treasure was kind of always finishing second and third to the flashier horses that Baffert had, and the more precocious horses. Who ends up being the best horse out of that group? National Treasure by a mile. So sometimes you just have to wait and see how those horses turn out. But certainly 2 impressive efforts there from Getaway Car and Nooni in the Sorrento and the Best Pal. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this week in NYRA Bets. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me as we went over some of the previews, talked about some of the upcoming content, and of course, reviewed some of the big races from the last weekend. We got a lot of great races coming up this coming weekend. The Alabama, we got the Kings Plate up at Woodbine. We have a lot of really great content, so make sure to like and subscribe to the NYRA Bets YouTube channel. My name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races, and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.